Introducing Hilary Duff as Wendy. That was so exciting.
Hilary Duff is carrying this movie.
I be-witchin.
Oh, maybe I should go out and look for some red overalls and a white t-shirt to rock.
Hey Team Duff, it's Whitt. Thanks so much for listening to Duff Enough, the ultimate Hilary Duff fan podcast. This show is a celebration of the life and career of actress, singer, mother, and all-around icon, Hilary Duff. Coming up, it's the Casper Meets Wendy episode, so literally, let's go back to the beginning of Hilary's career. I'll be joined by fellow Hilary fan Cat McGee to kick off a segment called Blockduster. And Cat is the co-creator of a stage show called the Hilary Duff Project. If you're listening to this episode as it's originally being released, then the latest production of the show is about to open in Chicago. So I want to say break a leg and congrats to Cat and the rest of the cast and crew. She'll explain more about it in just a bit, but all the details are on Instagram at the Hilary Duff Project. Before jumping into our conversation, let's hear from another fan about why they love our girl HD. This is from Team Duff with Love. Here's what Mark had to say.
There are a million and one things I can say about my love and admiration for Hilary Duff, but for this, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm just so grateful to her for always being such a great role model and inspiration. I know some other entertainers make it so hard to be a fan sometimes, but Hilary has never done that. She's virtually controversy-free. I've always been so proud of her and so proud to be able to call myself a fan from the very beginning. She's such a hard worker and so talented. It would have been so easy for her to fade away after Lizzie ended, but not only did she keep working, but she kept getting better. You can hear it in the vocals in her albums. Every time she released an album, she just sounds better and better, and even her lyrics get better. You can see it in her acting, too, and even in her parenting and philanthropy. And through her characters and her music and her personality, everything she's done, she's always just made it cool to be a good, kind, and thoughtful person. And that's something that I've always carried with me growing up. And I'm forever thankful to her for that.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy our silver screen queen. It's time for Blockduster.
Well, joining me now is someone who I connected with recently on social media, and she has a project. It's called the Hilary Duff Project, so I can't wait to hear about that. Her name is Cat McGee. Hey, Cat, welcome to Duff Enough.
Hi, happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Cat, what is the Hilary Duff Project? I'm so fascinated.
Yeah, so the Hilary Duff Project was actually originally created by a friend of mine, Alex Benjamin, and I back when we were freshmen at Northwestern University back in 2012.
Wow.
We actually both discovered that Metamorphosis was our first CD. And so it kind of was this passion project that got us through the winter quarter and developed into the show that was originally called A Not So Typical Girl. But then we did it our freshman year to a sold out audience and then rebooted it for our senior year in 2015. And it actually garnered the attention of Duff herself. So she tweeted at us in support of the show. And then back in 2017, it had its Chicago debut under the new name, the Hilary Duff Project, to another sold out run. And so now we're bringing it back. And actually, Alex is working on some other projects. So it's just me this time with my some fellow castmates from previous productions. But yeah, I'm bringing it back for a 2020 run in Chicago.
Oh my goodness. I'm obsessed. And I want to audition. I wish I was in Chicago.
Yes, it's going to be a really, really fun time. It truly is just like an hour 20 of just fun, like lots of dancing, lots of singing of her old music, a lot of Metamorphosis references, and some of your old, early 2000 pop and Disney Channel star references. The show essentially takes the audience through different stages of her life, including, Casper Meets Wendy, the Lizzie McGuire show, Aaron Carter dating breakup phase, Lizzie McGuire movie, and then the all-encompassing life after Disney. So it's just a strong, nostalgic trip for all of that time period. So it's really great. It's super fun.
Awesome. Okay. And where can people look that up on social media?
Yeah, so you can find information about it on Instagram at the Hilary Duff Project. I can already tell people that they can find their tickets on Today Tix, which is an app that they can download on their phones. And if they're in Chicago, totally download it on there, and definitely follow us on Instagram for more information, for sure.
Cool. Awesome. And so you said Metamorphosis was your first album. I mean, lifelong fan, basically.
Well, it's funny because I think I've actually become a stronger fan through writing this show. I was a big fan of her Metamorphosis CD, but growing up, I didn't really own a lot of CDs, and I didn't really listen to radio just because my parents tended to limit like our access to those things. And so it wasn't until actually when we were writing the show and we started doing more research on Hilary and her life that I became a much stronger fan in my early 20s, now into my mid 20s. So I definitely would say I'm like a new super fan, but I've always been a fan. It really was in like probably the last 6 years that I've become a super fan.
And I think a lot of people can even relate to that too, because, she went away for a little while and then she came back with like Younger and everything. And it was just kind of like this revival of her being back in the spotlight. And a lot of people who had kind of, lost touch of her, kind of came back. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I do have 3 questions for you that I ask every new guest on the show. And the first one is, what is your favorite Hilary Duff movie?
There's a lot of really good movies that she's done, but I think I gotta say, I think I'm a huge fan of her movie, Raise Your Voice. It shows a lot of range in her acting ability that I think some of her other movies don't quite get there with. But I love Raise Your Voice. I love the music. I love the storyline. I love kind of the grittiness of it. I'm going to go with Raise Your Voice for sure.
Teresa Fletcher. Iconic.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. What's your favorite Hilary Duff song?
I would say right now I'm really feeling in her Breathe In, Breathe Out album, My Kind.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's currently on one of my playlists that I play quite frequently. It is my pump up song in the morning when I'm commuting to work. Yeah, My Kind is truly what I'm feeling as of right now.
Should have been a single.
Oh, entirely. I have a lot of thoughts on Breathe In, Breathe Out.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So many
yes.
thoughts.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And then finally, what is your favorite episode of Lizzie McGuire?
It was technically the pilot episode, but then when the Lizzie McGuire premiered, I think it was the 4th episode, but it's the pool party episode. I love that episode because it kind of lays the groundwork for her and Gordo's kind of, are they or aren't they going to get together by the end of this series? It plants that seed very well in that episode and kind of shows that friendship at its core, which I love.
It was the 4th episode, you're right, that aired, but that pilot was so different from the rest of the series in terms of like the sets and just different things. It's kind of crazy because there was definitely a period of time between shooting the pilot and the rest of the show. So yeah, all 3 choices. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank
okay.
you.
Well, today we are going to be talking about Hilary's film debut, Casper Meets Wendy. And I really appreciate you doing this movie because I was like, this probably isn't the one that everyone would want to do. But I mean, I'm glad you're down for it.
Oh, entirely. It's truly a trip. I loved it.
Yes.
I loved rewatching it.
Yeah, I loved rewatching it. And, just to talk about where it kind of falls in the Hilary timeline, like I said, her debut movie, it was direct to video. This was back when we had like VHS, and I had a VHS copy of this movie. Did you happen to have one?
No, I didn't. I didn't know it was direct to movie. That's so funny.
Yes. So only a home video release, but still it was a big deal. And that was during a time, the late 90s. It came out September 22nd, 1998. And they were doing all of those direct to video sequels at that time. Like Disney was doing a bunch. And, there had been a big Casper movie in the mid 90s, 1995, with Christina Ricci. And that movie was a big hit. And so they did 2 direct-to-DVD or direct-to-video sequels, Casper, A Spirited Beginning, which was in 1997, and then they did Casper Meets Wendy in 98. And so this was Hilary's moment. And it's crazy to me. I said it came out on September 22nd of 1998. That was right before her 11th birthday. 10, maybe 9 when they shot the movie. But just first reaction from me, like seeing her in this, it's like so charming, and her it factor was already on display, honestly.
Oh, entirely. I mean, when I was watching the movie, I watched it with a friend of mine, and probably 5 minutes into her opening line, I turned to her and I said, Hilary Duff is carrying this movie. For as many heavy hitters as there were in this movie, I really think that Hilary carried the movie and made it more entertaining than if she had not been there and it had just been all of these other actors in it. She was just so charming, and her comedic timing was actually very spot on for a lot of moments that realizing how young she was is just truly incredible to witness again, you know?
Absolutely. And like Casper obviously was not there. So she's just acting most of the time, with nothing. So
yeah.
So proud of her. So proud of her at 10 years old.
Truly proud of her. And it doesn't shock me that she then had all of the things that followed. Mm-hmm. I'm not shocked that any of that happened for her because, watching that and seeing how young she is, you can just already see the potential that she has as an actor and a performer. And so obviously there was many people at that time who saw that too and totally latched onto it.
Right. A little bit about Wendy and that character. Casper, it's a Harvey Comics cartoon, and Wendy was actually Wendy the Good Little Witch, and she was a character in the Casper the Friendly Ghost comics, and then she got her own comic in 1960. So this was happening like in the 50s and 60s, and so an iconic character, and then here comes Hilary Duff to play it. This was a 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment release. And the last thing I wanted to mention here, fun facts-wise, Sean McNamara directed this. He's behind so many Disney Channel shows, and he would go on to direct her again in Raise Your Voice, your favorite Hilary Duff movie.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes. Jumping into the cast now, and you mentioned the heavy hitters, because it's crazy to me that she's starring alongside Oscar-nominated actors in this thing. Hilary, of course, was Wendy. And then we had Cathy Moriarty as Gert, one of the three witch ants. And she was actually an Oscar-nominated supporting actress for Raging Bull. And I also looked it up and found out that she played a different character, a villain, in that 1995 Casper movie, which was strange.
Yeah, I had thought she looked familiar, and I also looked that up as well. And I was a little shocked that she played an entirely different character in the same universe.
Yeah, and kept blonde hair for both parts. I was like, okay. Then we had Shelley Duvall as Gabby, another witch ant from The Shining, which I'm not a horror movie fan, but I mean, when you know The Shining, you know her face, and you can just look up the poster of that movie, and it's just oh my goodness, this woman is in a movie with Hilary Duff. And it's funny because her character in The Shining, her name was Wendy, so it's whoa, full circle.
Yeah, The Shining. I'm a huge fan of horror.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, one, it's very cool to see the range of actors always, but it made me think a lot about, I wonder how much, knowing all the other people that I'm sure you're also going to continue naming, how much Hilary actually knew about the people that she was working with, and seeing how well she kind of held her own in the various different scenes with these people. It's just honestly incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Next here, Terry Garr as Fanny, the third witch ant, and also an Oscar-nominated Best Supporting Actress for Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. So it's mind-blowing. And of course, they all three had different hair. So Fanny had the red hair, Shelley as Gabby had the black wig, and then Cathy as Gert had blonde hair. So, a little bit of a different thing going on there for each of those ants. And then we get to this Hollywood legend who is George Hamilton. Everyone knows him for his tan. And he's kind of this old Hollywood guy. And he dated Marilyn Monroe. And again, it just blows my mind that Hilary's in this movie with, someone like him. And he played Desmond Spellman, which is the villain.
An incredible name.
Oh, yeah. Such a good name. Wild that he's in this movie, but I kind of love him in it. So.
Yeah.
A couple of other names I wrote down here. Blake Foster played Josh, her little 1 second love interest in this movie. He was in some Power Rangers movies, so I wanted to mention that.
Turbo Power Ranger movie. That was a big movie that I watched as a kid. And when I saw it again this past time, I was like, this kid looks so familiar. And it took me a second. But yeah, it was the Turbo Power Ranger movie back in 1997.
Yes. And he's going around to all these Comic-Cons. I looked him up on Instagram and everything. I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
The other notable name I wanted to mention here, and there are a few cameos that we'll talk about as we get into the movie, but Bill Farmer is actually the voice of one of the ghosts, Stinky. And I'm a huge Disney fan, too. And Bill Farmer is the voice of Goofy.
Wow. I did not know that. That's a fun fact.
Yes. Let's move on to the movie now, and we'll kind of start at the beginning, go till the end. It'll be great. This movie begins with the opening credits, and we get Casper the Friendly Ghost music going on there, and we get to see introducing Hilary Duff as Wendy, and that was so exciting.
Just the best moment of that. I also forgot that back in the 90s and even before that they spent literally like 4 or 5 minutes doing all of the credits at the beginning. And how they would use that in many movies, how they use that as an opportunity for like just little animated moments. But it was like a lovely little build up to seeing her introducing Hilary Duff moment.
And I actually have a funny story related to that and it would have been around the same time when The Parent Trap came out, because you're right, a lot of films during that time and even before, they'd put credits before the movie, not such a thing anymore, but then there were some movies that didn't do that. And I remember in the beginning of The Parent Trap, you have the credits that come at the beginning. And I would always like stop the VHS tape after it was over. And I'd be like, where's the rest of the movie? Like, why didn't the rest of the movie come on? So
yeah,
I thought that was the credits. Anyway.
Yep.
Okay. Side note. After the credits, the movie opens on a baseball field, and this was very strange, but I don't know if there was something that happened in the little direct-to-video sequel that came before this, but a spaceship shows up, and the ghosts appear, and it was just very strange. And I mean, it's Casper and his uncles, but yeah, I don't know what was going on there.
It was a truly wild opening, so much so that I honestly questioned if I had turned on the wrong movie. It felt just so random. And then when the panic set in, it just was this very in style of the movie, but this, the panic moments were with like, I don't remember the name of the ghosts, the trio ghosts, but the bigger one who like loves to eat, and he picked up all of the hot dogs and decided to like drop them on the people. You have the single guy who turns to the camera and screams, "Run for your lives." It was a very shocking beginning to this movie where I was like, what? How does this start again? I don't remember this part at all.
It takes so long to get to Wendy. I'm just like, I wish they would have just started with her.
Yeah, the moment it started getting really weird, aka the very beginning, I was like, cool, when's Hilary showing up?
Yep. Did you notice the baseball announcer was played by Alan Thicke? That's one of those cameos.
Yes. He was in a television show, right?
Growing Pains.
Yep. So I kind of thought it was just, I don't know, it felt different. That moment especially just felt a little bit different from all the rest. But loved that cameo though.
One last little note about the opening here. Immediately you can tell it's the 90s. Like all the people in their clothes, and this guy has a video camera. That's one of those old 90s video cameras where the tape is inside it. I mean, it was so 90s. Again, we still don't get to Wendy because the next scene we meet the villain, Desmond Spellman, and he's doing this whole mirror on the wall thing, and he's asking like who's the baddest witch of all, basically, or warlock in his case. The mirror tells him that it's Wendy, the good little witch, and it's just like, oh snap. So we kind of get this Snow White situation going on there, and so we know that he's going to be going after Wendy. And he makes these bad guy henchmen, which, by the way, I'm definitely going to refer to these people as like bad guys and whatnot. Like, I don't, yeah.
That's what they are.
That's what they are, yeah. But he makes the henchmen, and they're going to go get little Wendy, and it's just like, okay. Also, though, we learned that how he's going to get rid of Wendy is by sending her through this, mystic portal. So we'll see what happens with that a little later. Then we get to Hilary. We get to Wendy, and she's waking up, and she has the cutest little plaid pajamas on. Oh, it's so cute.
I loved it. the tiniest little bean.
Earlier, you were talking about her first line, and it's something I wrote it down here, and she says...
I also wrote it down, but you go ahead.
Okay. So she says, mornings would be better if they happened in the afternoon. And this is after like a big yawn, and it's just like, girl, relatable.
Yeah, truly. I was like, yes, I'm on board with you 100%. I like you. I'm with you. I'm rooting for you.
Right then and there. I mean, Hilary, obviously, one thing about her is her relatability factor. And even then, as little Wendy, she was giving us lines like that. So... She doesn't stay in the plaid pajamas for long because she uses magic to transform into her basically Little Red Riding Hood jumpsuit. Iconic.
Truly iconic. And I love that, honestly, and there's many moments throughout the whole movie, but I love that this movie, despite her being the youngest in her family, she's just as good, if not better, at magic than her aunts. I love that little aspect of this movie because I feel like oftentimes in other movies, which I quite frankly can't think of any examples, but I know that there's examples out there of like the young wizard or witch in the family who's like the underdog because of their age. And I love that she's like truly on an equal plane, if not higher than her aunts. And we see that like right from the beginning that she like knows what she's doing.
Speaking of her aunts here, we meet them and we find out that they kind of refer to her as Red or Little Red throughout the movie. There was a Madonna joke and a Spice Girls reference from these aunts as they're like making this potion. And the Spice Girls reference, one of the aunts is like, I'm the original Spice Girl, as she's like, mixing stuff up in this cauldron. And I was like, oh my gosh.
I missed that. That's so good.
Yeah. Well, there are tons of just references and the play on words and the puns in this movie. So good.
Mm-hmm.
We also learn here that like the witches are scared of Desmond Spellman, which, he's the bad guy. So of course that would be that way. But meanwhile, we learn that ghosts are scared of witches. So foreshadowing kind of how this is all going to play out. So Wendy, in her little red jumpsuit, goes out to meet the paper boy. And this was so like sweet and innocent. And she took him a little present. But the aunts are basically trying to sabotage the whole potential relationship. And they throw this goo at him and it's strange. And he like gets whapped on the head with all his papers. And I was sad for little Wendy.
Well, I also was like, why are these grown women terrorizing this poor young paper boy when all Wendy wants is a friend?
I know.
Their whole relationship dynamic is quite baffling.
And that is a moment that kind of sets up like the aunts are not too crazy about Wendy, basically bully her, of course. And so we see that continue. Like I said, the witches are scared of Desmond and his henchmen show up. They're trying to get Wendy. So the witches have to like get out of there. They wind up at this resort/hotel place. It's called Sunnybright. And at the same time, we see Casper and his uncles going there. So it's like, okay. But when they show up at the resort, they're at the front desk and one of the witches is like, cabin for 4, maybe with an extra room in case I want to have any spare guests. And I was like, oh, okay. This is a kid's movie.
I totally missed that. That's an incredible line. It's one of those, like, as an adult, we see you, but as a kid, you're like, whatever, don't even notice that line. And I'm focusing on the goat or whatever, you know?
Yes, because they turned this one lady into a goat who had like insulted them. Mind you, they're wearing like witch outfits at this point. Mm-hmm. And this woman was like, aren't you ladies a little old to be trick-or-treating? Which reminded me of Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
Because there's a similar line in that movie. But they turned that lady into a goat so that they can steal her room or something because there weren't any rooms left. But anyway.
Well, also, every time they changed clothes, they had this like 70s vibe going with Wendy having, the appropriate 90s style. But the aunts just like constantly, their wardrobe was like stuck in the 70s, which was just quite entertaining to look at.
No, 100%. And they do change outfits with their wands. And it's funny because you're right. Like, they think that Wendy's the one who looks weird. And it's like, not quite. But Wendy changes into that cute little overall outfit. And it's just like, oh my gosh, Hilary, could you be more adorable right now?
I loved every single one of her outfits in this movie. And like to the point where I'm like, oh, maybe I should go out and look for some red overalls and a white t-shirt to rock. She rocked him so well.
She did. I wrote down a line here. After she transforms into those overalls, she's like, I be-witchin. And, again, the puns.
She did say that. Oh, so good.
The puns here, the puns. Next, she meets Josh at the resort. And, he's this little boy. And, he's like her age. And so it's like, we might have a little love interest again. And she thinks he's cute and all that. And we see that. And he seems sweet, but we'll learn otherwise soon. Spoiler.
Yeah, I love his opening lines of, you probably heard of me. And this resort was kind of boring until now. I was like, wow, this kid's got game.
Yes. Yep. I made a few notes about when they're in their hotel room. So they're using magic to like rearrange everything. But then they decide to stop because they realize that Desmond Spellman can like track them by them using their magic. So no magic. Wendy actually gets grounded. We do see her on her computer for a second. And there's a line about spell check, which I thought was funny because get it like spell check. And when they ground her, because, she can't use magic, she says, I feel like I'm in the Witches Protection Program. So it never stops.
Right. It's constant.
On Casper's side of things, we see that he has a very parallel situation where his uncles are basically bullying him the same way Wendy's aunts do. And that's something we kind of would have already known just from prior knowledge of the Casper series. Wendy is grounded, but she sees Josh and decides to go and try to talk to him. And he's in an arcade. And he turns out to be a total jerk, which he wasn't giving her the time of day at that arcade. So Wendy's kind of, sad and off on her own. Casper, same thing. And they run into each other in this little barn. And, okay, they're meeting, super cute. But, of course, they see each other and it's like a ghost. Like, Wendy's literally like, a ghost. And Casper's like a witch because, Wendy turns herself back into a witch so that, he'll be scared of her.
Casper doesn't realize she's a witch until she dons her all red witch hat and like jumpsuit, which I thought was funny that she had like shown evidence of her being a witch prior to that. But it wasn't until she changed her outfit that he was like, oh my God, you're a witch.
And then he's like scared of her for a second. But they kind of become friends. He even flirts with her a little bit, which I was like, okay, Casper, I see you.
Yep, flirty goes. And Hilary was quite sassy in that scene.
Yes. Okay, well, I wrote down some lines here. And Casper says, can you really do magic like David Copperfield? And Wendy's like, are you kidding? He eats my pixie dust. It doesn't get better.
Oh, man, those lines.
They hit it off and they become friends. And it's nice because they didn't really have any friends at the resort. They're kind of outcasts from their family. And then we get this fun sequence where they go and do all these things. And just to kind of touch on what they do here, they rollerblade, so 90s. Casper is actually like pulling Wendy, but he's invisible. So all these people are just seeing Wendy just kind of roll by, and it's strange. They play croquet. They listen to a Walkman / tape player together, which, again, 90s. What else? Oh, archery. And while this is going on, the song Holiday is playing, like, we're on a holiday, that song.
Also, okay, the archery moment was an interesting scene because you have this 10-year-old attempting to get her arrow on her bow, and she is epically failing at the beginning, and then you have all of these seemingly late teenagers who all look at her and just make fun of her for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have that conclude with her using her magic to get a bullseye. A beautiful moment.
I love her little finger like magic that she used. It was cute.
Yeah, her finger choreography for that day for the magic is something for the books.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yes. Oh, favorite part of the Casper and Wendy montage moment when they're flying and Wendy is like surfing on a broom. Casper's on a little motorcycle. That's so good.
It's very good. Also, I don't know where, I think it was probably within the realm of that montage, but I wrote down a quote and it's just honestly a heavily hyphenated word. But Hilary at one point within the context of her and Casper talking, she goes abso-spookin-lutely to him. And I loved it so much I wrote it down.
And I wrote down where when they're in the air, she says, having a bad air day.
So many left and right. If you stop paying attention for but a moment, you miss like 7 references. Crazy.
It's true. And this is a kid's movie, and there's so much in there. After their little day out, there's also some great lines where they're sitting, I think, on a bench, and Hilary's like, well, Wendy's like, this was the best day of my life. And Casper says, me too, minus the life part.
Yes.
I can't.
Quite subtle, just like slip it in their lines. And I love it.
Yeah. It's also at this point that they make this plan to make the aunts and uncles like each other. Because obviously, ghosts, witches in this universe, don't get along, and they want them to because they want to be friends, like Casper and Wendy. They are friends, but they want their aunts and uncles to be okay with it. This was so weird. This was such a weird situation, but their plan involves getting the uncles to, like, take over the bodies of humans and go to this dance at the resort where the aunts are going to be and, like, introduce them to them. I don't know. It was...
Yeah. Not the best storytelling trope.
The aunts weren't so hard to convince to go to the dance, though, and we see this great moment where they're at the pool, and, Wendy is supposed to be grounded, but she shows up in this detective costume as her disguise. Love it.
Truly incredible. Another incredible outfit. Whoever was the costume designer for this movie, mad props.
As she's leaving the pool, now this, honestly, my favorite one-liner. So she runs into Josh, and he's like, hey, doll face. And she says, hey, dog face. And the sass, though.
Truly consistent sass from Hill.
And we get an even better line, and I don't know if you wrote this one down or not, but I think he asks her to the dance, actually, or something, or he asks her out or whatever. But she says that she met someone new who's cute, pale, bald, and hangs out in cemeteries. I mean... Can you even?
And then when he did not take that well, she said, quote, you are way behind on 90s dating rituals, so maybe it's time for you to catch up. And then she used her little finger witching and manipulated this other kid's ketchup pouring on his hot dog to then go all over Josh's face. And I loved every second of that. Yeah. It was so good.
That was my favorite part. And recently, like at Halloween, someone tweeted that video, and Hilary got on Twitter for like 2 seconds and happened to see it. And she retweeted it and, laughed at it. And I thought that was so great because that was so good.
Like really iconic and really setting the stage for what we all should aspire to when we dump someone who is trash.
Mm-hmm. And he winds up getting thrown in the pool too, which is also great. This next part is not my favorite though, and it's the dance. And again, the uncles, they take over the bodies of these 3 guys. And I did make a note how like the fat ghost, he gets in like this overweight guy's body and he's like, why do I always get the fat guy? Which, anyway.
The very outdated jokes are just riddled throughout.
Hilary at the dance, her outfit, the red sweater, the black hat. I mean, she was killing it.
So good.
Here's the second cameo. Did you see the Ferris Bueller's Day Off teacher at this dance?
Yes, I did. And I definitely made a note of it. I was like, I spy with my little eye.
Bueller.
And his moment wasn't even that like iconic or anything. It just was like he was there and his interaction was blasé and then he was gone.
So the uncles in human form are absolutely gross, but they are flirting with the aunts. It's super creepy and the aunts are just weird and I don't even know what to even make of that.
It was a moment. And the moment where one of the uncles like couldn't stand his nice smelling scent, so he dunked himself in a dumpster and then came out, and then that's when they all saw the ants and they were like, oh wow, like what a lovely aroma. I mean, I gotta say, like it was an interesting, the moment when they're all sitting around the table, it was like a lovely little the audience is totally aware of the fact that these 2 people aren't what they say they are or presenting themselves as, and we can see that they totally could get along. But the moment that they like reveal themselves, that all goes for naught.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that here. I do want to talk about Wendy's little moment with Casper first. And so Josh sees Wendy at the dance, but Casper had asked Wendy to dance, and they're like outside at this gazebo.
She changes into that beautiful red dress.
Yes, she does. And it's such a cute little moment, but he doesn't want to be seen. Like, he's embarrassed to dance. And he puts on a cute little tux too. But he makes himself invisible to other people.
Doesn't Josh come out and sees her dancing by herself?
Yeah. He's like, why, you'd rather dance with yourself and not me or something? Yeah. When Casper changed into that tux, he also said the line, "The name's Boo, James Boo."
Oh, man. Quite honestly, I believe I had watched this probably 2 or 3 years ago, back when we did the first Chicago premiere of the Hilary Duff Project.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having this just strong, visceral reaction of wanting a sequel to Casper Meets Wendy, where like they actually are pursuing a relationship with each other, because their chemistry is quite palpable throughout the whole thing. And clearly Casper is a little smitten kitten.
Yes. I mean, I ship it. I do.
Yeah.
So the witches discover that they're ghosts at this point because they can't stay in those bodies any longer. And then what ends up getting revealed is that they can't use magic. Like, the witches are not using magic at this resort, which basically doesn't scare the ghosts as much. That's what Wendy tells Casper at this time.
And literally within like a minute of him leaving her and going to his uncle's, he reveals that information to them, which I was like, Casper.
Yeah, he did it accidentally, but still, yeah, you're right. He spilled the beans like right then and there.
He does not do well in a panic.
So that's what happens. And the uncles actually try to scare the witches away, which kind of works out, but Wendy ends up using her magic and pulls out her wand, and she turns them into plaster. And that's when Desmond is able to track her. So now we're getting to the climax. Desmond's coming to the resort. Things are about to go down. Okay. The witches are trying to fight off Desmond, and he has sent Wendy through this portal. Casper goes into the portal to try to save her. The ghost uncles team up with the ants to send Desmond into the portal. And honestly, I'm like rushing through this for no reason, but it's a big epic ending here.
It really is. I mean, there's a solid like 2 or 3 minutes, maybe not that long. It felt like that long, of her just in this, what did they call it? In the mystic abyss. She is just straight, like flailing her arms for quite a long time, where her aunts are just completely helpless. And it's Casper who kind of comes to the rescue for her.
And Hilary was doing a great job, I have to say, with all the flailing and screaming. It was good.
Yes. Yeah. She did a good job with it. It revved up. There was like the very beginning of it, it felt like a little, she was figuring things out. And then all of a sudden it clicked for her. And she was truly in panic mode, which was great.
The ghost and ants, they send Desmond through the portal instead, and they pull Wendy and Casper back to safety, barely, because the ropes are like hooked together, and it was not looking like it was going to stay hooked for a second. So they had us on the edge of our seats, you know. Happy ending. They're rescued, and there's hugs. There's a truce between the ants and the ghosts. And that mirror, the mirror on the wall, comes back and is like, Wendy is the greatest. And I wrote down this line that he says, and he's like, she did something no other can boast. This little witch befriended a ghost. So Wendy is the greatest, and it's her I select. One day she'll be queen, so show some respect. And I was like, yes, she will be queen. Queen Hilary Duff.
She's the queen of our hearts, always and forever.
At the very end, we see, the witches are leaving, the ghosts are leaving, and Wendy kisses Casper on the cheek, and he blushes. And there's a great line where she goes, bye, ghost boy.
Bye, ghost boy.
And that's kind of the end of Casper Meets Wendy and Hilary's film debut. And honestly, iconic.
Truly iconic. She killed it. And quite the foreshadow to the career that she's had ever since.
For me, I'll just say overall, I really enjoyed this. It was fun. All the one-liners were great. All the references I didn't catch as a kid were great. There were some moments that were a little cringeworthy, but yeah, really enjoyed it. Nice little throwback, fun, nostalgic movie.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking at it from the perspective of looking at Hilary and her debut acting career, thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It's such a gem to watch, and I would watch it again without hesitation for that aspect alone.
100%. And obviously she had done, I'm sure some commercials before this and that sort of thing, but this was it. And that was huge for her to land this role, this leading character in this franchise, basically. And yeah, launched everything, really. Great for her resume, for sure.
Oh, yeah, entirely great for her resume. And it was only, a couple years later that then probably all the preliminary work for Lizzie McGuire started coming about. And she obviously killed it for that. So
yeah, so this came out in 98 and Lizzie would have probably started shooting in 2000. So yeah. Finally, today we've got our trivia round here, Quizzy McGuire. And so, Kat, do you want to hit me first or do you want me to ask you your trivia question first?
Maybe hit me with yours first and we'll see how I do.
Okay. Not too hard, I don't think. But I did want to pull something that maybe was a little more, something that not everyone would know, maybe. We were talking about how she was starring with all of these Oscar-nominated actors in this movie and that sort of thing. So my question for you, which of the following Oscar-winning actors has Hilary not acted in a film or TV project with? Here they are. A, Angelina Jolie. B, Lady Gaga. C, Regina King, or D, Whoopi Goldberg. Some of these actors would have had Oscars by the time they starred in the film with Hilary. Some received them after the movie movie or show that she was in with them.
Wow. Jeez.
You want to do 50-50? You want to do a 50-50?
Sure. I have an inclination of who it is, but do a 50-50 so I can maybe, let's see if I'm roughly in the range.
For 50-50, we'll do Lady Gaga or Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh God, it wasn't who I thought it was. I'm going to say Whoopi.
And you're correct. She's not been in a movie or a TV show with Whoopi. I mean, she's been on The View, but not acting. I said acted.
Right. So what were the projects that she was in with Angelina Jolie and Lady Gaga and Regina King? Can you say that?
Okay. Well, Regina King, A Cinderella Story. But now Regina King didn't get her Oscar until recently.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah. That one's one that most people know. But okay, so Angelina Jolie, Hilary was an extra. This was her first sort of project on her IMDb page. This is her first thing. True Women. It was actually a miniseries, I believe, in the 90s or in 97. And it was Angelina Jolie. You had Dana Delaney. So they shot it basically where Hilary lived. And there's images or in clips of it online, on YouTube that you can look up, but didn't really, not a prominent role or anything, just kind of a little extra background, but still.
Wow.
Lady Gaga guest starred on Gossip Girl when Hilary was doing an arc on the show. And so they have a little scene together where Gaga is performing and Hilary is in the background watching and has a moment where Olivia, her character, is talking to Dan Humphries. And so, yeah, and Hilary even sings Love Game a little bit.
Yes.
While she was on that episode.
Correct. An incredible question. Okay, I came up with a couple, so I think I'm just going to narrow it down to this one I just thought was funny. But which Hilary Duff song is the theme song to Laguna Beach?
That would be Come Clean from Metamorphosis.
Bingo. Correct. Looking at the promo or the theme song video for Laguna Beach with the background of Come Clean, it truly is a magical experience to watch now. Especially knowing all the drama that's wrapped up into Laguna Beach and the drama of Come Clean itself. So,
yeah. Did you have any more that you wanted to throw at me?
Sure. Which of her novels is a New York bestseller?
Okay, so that's the first one, which is Elixir.
You're so good.
Listen.
And do you know what Matt Coma got for her birthday last year?
2018. Ooh, yeah. Okay. Let me think.
As a hint to it, it's not something that she owns in her home.
Oh, the alpaca.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, those were good. I'm going to challenge you. when you come back you're going to do another episode, hit me with a good hard one next time.
Okay, I'll have to dig deep and find something that you don't know, and we'll go from there.
Well, it's funny because I've been doing so many of these episodes, and most of the time, well, a few people have stumped me so far, but yeah, like they're coming at me and they're like, this one's so hard, and I'm like, no, it's not. Anyway. Well, Kat, this has been super fun. You will be coming back for another episode, so I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, thanks for making your Duff Enough debut today.
I am so thrilled and blessed to be on here. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's all for this episode of Duff Enough. Thanks again for listening. I hope you'll subscribe and stick around for more because this podcast is what dreams are made of. You can follow along on social media at Duff Enough Pod and check the description for my socials as well as show guests. And until next time, bye Team Duff.